Okay, define the inverse. First of all, let's make sure we understand that inverse means it's the function that goes in reverse. Just like multiply and divide are inverses, or plus and minus are inverses of each other. So, what we're going to do here is f of x, we know is really a y. It's just another name for y, right? So we're going to make it the x, and the x there becomes the y. So notice how I made the y here from the x here. I made the x here from the y there. Okay? So now that we have it reversed, we got to solve for y to find the official inverse function. So, because we have a square root here, we are going to square both sides. So now we have x squared equal to y minus 5, because the square, of course, gets rid of the square root. And now, solving for y, I just need to add 5. So y is going to equal x squared plus 5. Now this y, remember, is the inverse of the original y. That's why we call it f inverse of x. So this right here is f inverse of x. Okay, let's try it again. Let's move this up here. So this is y. We're going to make it x. And the x here becomes y. Now we got to solve for our new y here. So the first thing I'm going to do is square root both sides, because that gets rid of the square. And now we have y plus 4 equal to square root of x. Now we will minus 4 both sides. And y will equal square root of x minus 4. And now this y is the inverse, so we would call it f inverse of x. Now, I do need you to ask your teacher one thing really quick, okay? The one thing I may have made a little mistake on is when we took the square root here, technically it's plus or minus square root of x, right? Because with a square root, you can have a positive answer as well as a negative answer. So that would mean our f inverse is plus or minus square root of x minus 4. Now ask them if that's correct, or whether you just stick with the positive square root x. Now, the other thing I want to remind you of is right here, what makes it inverse is if I put in my y equals x line here, the inverse reflects over that y equals x line. So notice up here is my x squared plus 4, or minus 4 I should say, whatever it was, right? And then notice when this gets reflected across the y equals x line, I get this here. This is the positive square root of x minus 4. And I get this here, which is the negative square root of x minus 4. So find out if the correct inverse, in other words, is just positive square root of x minus 4, this right here, or do we also include negative square root of x minus 4? Besides that, everything else is correct.